All right, so I'm Peter Gilabert. I'm the director of Get All You Can, and I'm here to interview James Hazley, one of the seven stars of the film. And that's why we're here. And we're also here because you're you're one of the rare species of a musician and actor that you don't see that often, because sometimes people are kind of good at one but suck at the other. But I think you got both going on. So um, I think that's one of the things that attracted me to asking you to be in the movie. Um, to be honest with you, the idea of having you in the movie just came like right out of the blue when I was thinking about casting. Most of the people I was just going to see and choose someone from, backstage and that kind of thing. I had a couple of people in mind. Johnny was one, and you're the other one that just kind of popped in my head one day, and I was like, whoa, what about James? He's like, I don't know where it came from. I'm telling you, it's so weird. And then I think it was like the next day or later that day, I, contacted you. And the weirdest part is I had no idea if you were even acting. I just had this weird feeling if that you must have some kind of latent talent because you just had a lot of personality. And I just thought if he can act, he would be really interesting. So it turned out that you had started acting, which was really amazing too, on top of everything. So uh, I mean, I don't know. I guess the first thing I would ask you is when we know each other from a long time. I know your musician background, all the stuff, when you were in Cockeyed Ghosts in the '90s and later, and then but did you have a little bit of an itch for acting back then, or is it something you just kind of always had in the back of your mind, or you know what I mean?
It started early on in my life, where my mom and other people, I had an agent originally when I was a kid. And I went on some auditions and I did juvenile jury, romper room, some things like that. But I didn't want, it's like I've always fought all my life. Other people have said I should act all my life. And I don't like Hollywood. I just don't like the culture of Hollywood on the
Yeah,
movie side. I love it on the rock and roll side and the Hollywood punk. We can go into that later. That
yeah,
was my, as you know. So, the punk rock side of Hollywood gets a 10, and the culture side of Hollywood and the movie side of Hollywood gets a 0. So basically, I just never wanted to be, involved in it for a lot of reasons that have now come to light in recent years with the
yeah,
social movement. I knew
yeah,
that since I was a kid. I had a show
yeah,
business family, right? So,
yeah,
um, but being a performer, number one, you know, I got to the point a few years ago, very like a couple months before you contacted me. I had done my first bit part in the movie and did a TV pilot right before you contacted
oh, that's
me.
right, I
Because
remember you told me that.
I decided it was like on my birthday in 2018, December 7th, and
Yeah,
I had it about it. And because I also dislike the city of Los Angeles. I'm a grouch, right? So I was like,
yeah,
I'm about to Los Angeles, and I still am moving back to Vegas, but we're going to do it then. I said, well, why don't I try acting? 3 years later, I can say that was a pretty good thought. You know what I mean? Because I did that at the age of, I was turning 46. So it wasn't like, it was just kind of like, as before I'm out of here, let's try this. And it worked out pretty good. So
yeah, yeah,
contacted me within months after that. But to answer your question about the 90s, it was other people's idea. And I half-heartedly went through it like a lot of things I've done in my career. I've done that with bands too. You know, it never is going to work out unless it's your idea. So it wasn't
yeah,
really my idea. I was 46, right? So, and you contact me out of the fucking blue, excuse my French, right after that. I hadn't heard from you, quite a while before that.
yeah.
So it was like, that's amazing. And then I had seen a Kickstarter that you had done. I'm thinking it might have been as much as a year before this. I'm not sure if it was for this project or another project, but I remember going, oh, there's Pete. I hadn't seen you, long time.
Uh-huh.
And I came to Kickstarter and I was like, oh man, there's my old boy Pete. But I didn't think about, at that time, I still wasn't thinking I was an actor. I was a bouncer, you know? So it was just kind of what do they call that? Schadenfreude? That's the wrong term.
Kismet, Kismet.
Kismet.
Yeah,
There we go. The Kismet. Schadenfreude is cool. It's a cool term, but it doesn't apply here. But anyway, I just the name. I think that band name's taken, but I would call it Man Short. But I digress. But yeah, it was just good timing. Called me, or you actually just messaged me and you said, yeah, crazy idea. Well, my first concern, Pete, was I wanted to work with you until I read the character description, because it was for a white guy. I don't know if you've said that in your press yet, but Andy was written for a white guy. And that was like the first thing I noticed. So I'm like, Pete, what are you doing? What's happening? I don't know if you want to tell that story, but I was a little skeptical about that.
Kind of, yeah. The parts of the character are based on a couple of real people. One of the guys actually, he's technically Latino, but he's, I guess that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's true. I hadn't really thought about. My wife did point out, she's like, well, this movie you're gonna make, it looks really white. And I was like, yeah, I know. Why? And I wasn't necessarily thinking of certain races either way, and I didn't really care. Some of the people that tried out were other races, were Asian, and some people who were really good. And but I definitely didn't want to have like a super white cast either. I wanted to be just every type of possible. It didn't preclude either way. So yeah, it definitely. It's one of those things where it's hard because I wasn't thinking particular race wise, but yeah, I guess he is kind of a white, kind of what people would make fun of when they say a white character, which
Right.
kind of makes it even more amazing you playing it, because you play it very believable.
Because when we established that, then I really related to it, because I then obviously related it to my own history as being like the token black guy in a lot of punk rock scenes.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it really became at home. But at the first reading of the script, I was just like, I was seeing it the way it was written. And I know guys like that. We came up in a scene, I think it's worth noting that we came up in a scene, the mutual scene that we were kind of in the Silver Lake kind of 90s was very multicultural, but doesn't necessarily get credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a few Black and minority, quite a few actually in our scene. So I thought it was kind of cool that I got to play that part as well, and that we didn't make a big deal about it, because it would have been really the scene we came from.
Yeah, I know you're right. Yeah, and
depicted that way. It was always,
and it was nice because I do remember that bands in Silver Lake and that and that kind of thing in the late 90s. If there was an underrepresented group in a band, like a female drummer or whatever, or a Black bass player, no one really made a big deal out of it. Everybody was like, so what? Which was, I always thought was really cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, why do we have to, which is like,
I can guarantee you, it was a rock scene like that.
Yeah.
Every other, before that, it was always made a big deal of or ignored, right? So it was cool that it was just like, there was a few of us,
yeah,
John Montgomery, Stu, guys like that, Eddie Munoz, people like that, where we were all playing together. Nobody meant, we were all just rockers, man. We were just rocking out. It was a very inclusive, not to mention the many bands that had female, members. And I think we came at a point in history where, if you look at rock and roll before that, it was much worse, obviously much worse. It was very white, male for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that, kind of opened the door. Now today, even though the music business isn't as viable, the variety of it, you have to applaud. It's like, okay, there's bands with everybody in the world, every possible person. It has the right to be in a band together, and it's treated the same. And I love that we were kind of like the generation that kind of opened that door.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. Now, okay, so what else do we need to talk about? We made the movie, and I was really happy with the way you were, you obviously, I was really happy with the way you acted in it, and I thought you were each day, we shot it in 6 days for anybody who doesn't know is watching this. And you were every day you were more and more confident. And by the end, you were like just really blazing, I thought. And it was nice to see, because there's a lot of pressure working with just people of different backgrounds. Some people had a lot of experience with small indie films, some people hardly any, and everyone had to kind of get along and feel their way through, and under like 2-3 takes for every shot, and that was it, move on. And it's a hard way to make a film.
By the time we did this film, I had already done a few things, like I said, the TV pilot, which made me see how it's not that different from all the bands I've jammed with.
Yeah.
All the most wide variety of people ever. I'm very proud of that, from African cats, man, to like, Canadian folk people. I've jammed with anybody, right? So when you get in a situation like that and you have people from different, but very different backgrounds like that, and we didn't have a lot of rehearsal time. It was like an ensemble that you kind of hastily threw together.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable because I had already seen that. Oh, it's like a jam. It's like kind of like a jam. Random. I love that shit.
You were a good sport. I mean, I remember you with Jill Galbraith, and you had the green sweater, and we turned that into this. We made that part of a script, and when she's going off on you, you were like, "No, bring it." And she was holding. You worried that she was holding back, and you're like, "Let's get the characters. Let's have them going at it." Like, and so you were a good sport. Into this, getting into the spirit of, having like all these generations, people clashing and
experience. She was a much more experienced actress. I think, she had a lot of experience as an actress, and I thought she was a good sport too, because a lot of us, I thought, were like rougher, maybe, as far as like, the protocol of the set and stuff like that. I've learned a lot more since then, but the way you do things and blocking, all that kind of stuff. She already knew a lot of that stuff, and she was pretty good in helping me in particular learn it. And that a lot of times professional actors, look, in my limited experience, I don't want to be too judgmental, but ones that have worked a lot, like her, they can be impatient, to say the least. You know what I mean? It's like let's just, she was nothing like that, and I appreciated that.
Yeah,
and I was able to learn from her how things are done. And
she was
a lot of time. You got to tell them, we shot this in 6 days. I didn't have time to learn how to be professional unless someone was helping. And her and Sandy really helped me with that.
Yeah. Now, and and one big thing that now, so after we were done, everybody kind of had that little afterglow. Hey, that was cool. I hope something good happens. And then of course I spent the next year watching the movie over and over again, so it was kind of a treat for me, because I got to watch you guys. I felt like I was still there, like you guys left, but me editing it for 9 months, I felt like I'd never left that place where we shot it, and which was interesting because I got to see all the nuances of the way you guys did. I was like, oh, look at that thing James did, that one, oh man, like the way he hesitated, that was so good. Or I'd see something else that someone did, I'm like, oh man, that's great, I'm going to edit this way. So hopefully that you'll see that when it comes out. But I also want to say, mention.
When we wrapped, I'll be honest with you, I thought you had a big job ahead of you, and you did a very good job of it. Because again, it was in 6 days, and we had to shoot a lot of stuff. But in those 6 days, I was like, man, he's going to have to sift through all of this, because again, it was new for me how films are made. I was like, the sheer hours you're going to have to sit through. I've since learned a little bit more about editing, is that's kind of what you do. But I remember going, man, how do you, because sometimes you had to do it from different angles, and I felt like I didn't do it the same way as I did it the other angle. I was like, how are you going to match that? But you did. So, kudos to you as
Yeah, I mean, someone probably should be interviewing us together rather than me interviewing you. But I mean, we could talk for hours about that. What how we overcame, like what you're saying. But I do want to say that good things happened to you while I was editing. You joined the union, right? First of all, right? Now was that concurrent with you getting on the Eric Andre show? Was that after?
I got in originally through the TV pilot that I was in.
Okay.
I was, and then when I became a featured member of the Eric Andre show, I went from Top Hartley into SAG. So
Okay.
that's the way it worked. But I was already like eligible, I think, before that. But well, I didn't know it. Maybe the rules of SAG became clear once I became a member of their show cast.
Yeah.
That's when I read everything, and I was like, oh, okay. So definitely, officially, it was when I was on the Eric Andre show, which was a few months after we wrapped, maybe 5 months, something like that.
Well, I was pretty jazzed. I mean, first, I learned that Jill, who plays Shelby, got in, and then I noticed. I said, "Oh, wait, James too. Oh, this is really cool." So I was pretty excited about that, and so so in the meantime, we shot it in February, March of 2019. Here we are, finally 2 years later. It's coming out this July. And in the meantime, you've been on this show. I don't know if you want to give brief story of how that happened. I happened to catch a Zoom interview you did with some other guys, so you don't have to give me a long story if you don't want. You can just give me the abbreviated version. But
yeah, I don't get too much into that because I kind of moved on to other projects now. But yeah, it was incredible. It was a Craigslist ad that I answered that turned out to be for the role of Blamable, and yeah, I definitely appreciate it and stuff like that. But that's the thing about Hollywood. Like, that was 2 years ago now, and it's like I'm moving on. I've got some other projects I'm doing, and it's it really opened the door for me. I really appreciate it. But it's the character of Blamable is definitely it's not necessarily. I don't feel like it's like the biggest challenge. Like, I want to actually get into some acting.
Right.
Acting,
right
now.
Yeah. Right. It's a fun thing, and you want to obviously do other things too. Well, it's really cool though. I mean, like you said, you got in the union, you got a lot of exposure. I mean, were you sponsored by a coffee company at one point? I saw these things on Instagram, or were you just there's a certain kind of coffee. I just remember seeing posts on Instagram, and I thought I saw something about a kind of coffee. I thought, is James have a sponsor?
I do have a few sponsors, and one is Incidentally Coffee, which is a coffee blog that sponsors me.
Oh,
and
okay.
they all kinds of different coffees. I've been on the webcast and I've been on the podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm glad you noticed it.
Yeah, I thought that's really cool for him. I mean, like he's moving up, he's doing stuff, and it's like, I don't know, it's great to see like people from something you're do with them, and then you see him like do amazing things after, where you're just like, you're kind of you're just rooting for him. So
my mom was the performer, my dad was the manager, so I'm doing both right now. So I'm real busy when I'm not on screen as Blamable. I'm actually kind of doing the independent entrepreneur thing. And rather than try to join the Hollywood system, it's like, why not keep all the money myself and really hustle. I was doing before, but I hadn't applied it to acting or the Hollywood scene. I had applied it to private security and things like that. And now I'm just using that hustle in Hollywood as well, but building my own thing rather than the corporate fascist regime.
Well, that's great. Before I forget, the Zoom interview you did that I caught most of it with these three guys that were, I think it had mostly had to do with the Eric Andre show, but they also mentioned These Gray Men, the band you're in, with the guy from System of a Down. People would know that. Now he might have a connection to me and my sister, because my sister is the widow of Bernie Wrightson, who created Swamp Thing. He's a legendary comic artist who just passed away. And I remember them saying, if this is the same guy, that one of their big buyers of their art was the drummer for System of the Down.
That's him, because
that
Torpedo is his company. Yeah.
Okay. Isn't that funny? Yeah, I understand he's a huge fan of Bernie.
in July at the Palladium. So look out for that. Torpedo Comics convention in July and at the Palladium in Hollywood.
What's going to happen?
believe it's
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. What's happening in July?
a convention for Torpedo Comics, which I was going to put in a plug for them too.
Oh,
That's John's comic book company. We're doing a convention in July at the Palladium in Hollywood.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Put the links in my bio or whatever. You know, we can move on. But I won't that plug.
Okay, yeah. So is there any other future things that you want to plug or talk about? I'm trying to, I'm sure you're saying you've got some things coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a record company that I'm partnered with called Make Noise Not War Records. And it's a international record company based in Argentina and here in Los Angeles. And also the Make Art Not War Foundation. And we're going to be opening a gallery soon in downtown. So
I've seen the hashtags for that. I didn't know that was you started that. Oh, wow.
I didn't start it. Sergio Bonacci started it, but I'm now a partner in it.
Oh, okay.
And it's a nonprofit having to do with non-corporate art and, bringing art to the masses. To make not art, not war, meaning international borders instead of fighting, like the thing going on in Palestine, maybe exchanging art ideas instead. So we're going to, awesome. Do this internationally, man. And what's great about the Blamable character, and where I'm very, very appreciative to Eric for that, is because it really has opened a worldwide door. That show is on all over the world. So I know Blamable in Indonesia and, Norway and all these places. There's France. I mean, a lot of places that were random. That I'm like, that's wonderful. America's culture is not monolithic. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things going on. Maybe the majority of exciting things going on artistically, even in movies overseas. So it's a great opportunity with them.
That's funny that you say that. I mean, so many people into film and filmmaking are influenced by, European, other, directors, just because they don't necessarily do things that's sort of predictable, cheesy, as they say, Hollywood way. I mean, Hollywood tries to be arty, but whenever the mainstream stuff tries to be, studios try to be arty, it usually comes off forced. But not always, but anyways, so all right, well, yeah. Well, I think that's just about every question I had. So this movie, you play Andy, and it's called Get All You Can. It comes out in July. That's what the distributors have told me. It's probably going to be on, judging by the other platforms they put everything else on, it's probably going to be on Amazon, Google Play, Vudu, Tubi, platforms like that, I would imagine for sure, and I'm sure a few others as well. So it's going to be out there, and I'm just going to plug it as much as I can. They have their marketing they're going to do, but you can't rely on everyone else for everything. So I think I'm going to try to interview some more. What's that?
What is the name of the distribution company?
Summerhill Films.
Okay.
Summerhill Films.
I've gone from Voodoo to Summerhill because I used to work at Voodoo. I was a retail salesman for Voodoo in 2008.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. So all these years later, I get to be on a movie that's going to be on Voodoo. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I worked for Xenon Pictures, and they had all the Dolomite movies, and you know all my friends that work there, and Steve and Janet and all those guys. Steve still works there, and they've put out some pretty big things lately. Their owner won an Academy Award, I think, but that's what their specialty is. So, all right, James, I think that pretty much covers it. We'll put this on YouTube and hopefully get some eyes on it and get some eyes on the movie. Thanks. Thanks for
go check the Shakes, Pete's old band, guys. Go check that band out. Awesome.
All right, man. I'll see you later, James.